Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. This metal is exploding in price, but why not gold and why not silver? Well, let's explore. Many of us are frustrated these days, with especially silver's prices doesn't seem to want to conform to what we think it should do. But there's a lot of forces that are in play in the market, and those are natural market forces that come into play, and a lot of that is entrenched with psychology of the markets, but there's a lot of different factors that come into play that can move the prices up or down. It may be a little bit easier to figure out why prices move for these other precious metals I'm going to be talking about. And one in particular is exploding in price as I record this video. It's pretty astounding to see the movement in price. And of course, makes you wonder what's going on here with this metal, and why is it going up so much, and why has it happened for multiple days here? It's crazy. Because as I record this video, gold and silver are actually down. But the same day that the gold and silver are down over 1%, this metal is up almost 6%. It's insanity. But there's a reason for it. I'm going to talk about that now. But before we get into that, I want to encourage you, if you're new here, to subscribe to the channel. I do post daily videos. And if you have come back in our regular viewer or subscriber, I want to encourage you to press the thumbs up button. It helps to engage the algorithm for YouTube and get the video out there to other people. It's about spreading the message of precious metals. That's what this is about, and that's what the channel is about. And I like to talk about a lot of different things with regards to the metals, and I cover them all. And this one is going to be a different type of metal that we're going to talk about here today. So gold and silver have been stores of wealth for thousands of years. They have been recognized as money for most of human history anyways. And it's only really since about the 1960s that silver has not been utilized in currency exchanges and in our pocket change as money. But nonetheless, silver is seen as a store of value, and gold most certainly has maintain that store of value to the point where central banks around the world, regardless of philosophies of government or the type of ideology that drives administrations and governments and empires and epochs, well, gold has been at the center of it all for thousands of years and continues to be to this very day, to the point where the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of central bankers, in April of 2019, labeled this metal right here as a Tier 1 asset, which means that it puts it on par or equal to cash for transactions between central banks. Silver, though, as well as many mints around the world, and we know that the governments do mint coins, bullion coins, that people recognize as a store of wealth. And it also is a metal that is used in industry. It has a dual role, and that's important as we progress into talking about this other metal that is making headlines, or at least one headline that I saw, but not too much activity about it because it's a fringe precious metal. Indeed, and you've heard me, some of you that are familiar with the channel know that these types of metals that I refer to that are tracked on the Kitco or for spot price, there's 5 of them. There's gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and some places will track the price of rhodium. And but we're going to be talking about today the one metal that is exploding in price right now is this metal right here. It is palladium, indeed. Palladium is the metal that we're watching here, and it has done very, very well. In fact, it got to an all-time high of very close to $3,000 within the past year, and it has since fallen fairly dramatically, almost to the point where gold was actually higher than palladium was for a while in the bid price. But Palladium still beat out in the ask price because there's a greater spread in Palladium because it's a much more volatile market. But so Palladium is the metal that we're talking about that is exploding in price right now. It's crazy to see, but it is happening. And this here is a Palladium Eagle, and its price was low for quite an amount of time, including in 2017, when the United States Mint debuted its first bullion coin made out of this metal from palladium sourced from right here in the United States, out of Stillwater mines in Montana. Palladium is a very rare precious metal, and it is a metal that is more rare than platinum. And this is a platinum eagle. As you can see here, the density between the two metals is quite distinct. Palladium is not nearly as dense as platinum is. But both these metals are actually up. Platinum is up a little bit here for some of the same reason. But palladium sources are much more narrow. And in other words, you can only get palladium just as you can platinum, but there's more places to get platinum in the world to source platinum mining and the like. But most of the mines for platinum and palladium, but especially palladium, are in South Africa and in Russia, near the Siberia region. And that is the reason you can find, when I say the word Russia, you probably have a pretty good idea as to what I mean and as to what is the cause for the prices to go up. Very interesting indeed. Fascinating. And we are seeing now palladium reach a 4.5 month high with what's happening here. As we reference an article here from Coin News, and where we're at, gold futures, they have seen kind of a low and a pullback, but for platinum has added a little bit here, almost 2% upon the day. But palladium for March delivery soared, and it has soared up over at least for the futures, up over 7.4%. And that has occurred. But what's the reason? For geopolitical drama. There's a lot of geopolitical drama with Russia, and it's causing concern for the future supply of palladium, according to MarketWatch. And that is really what it's about. An all-out conflict with Russia would exacerbate an already critical supply issue in the palladium space and would likely drive palladium well north of $4,000 per ounce. So, there wasn't a time not long ago, where I would have said, hey, I would avoid palladium right now because it's overvalued. And I would still be inclined to think that if it were not for these developments that have been happening in Russia as of late. Because if we do see Russia invade Ukraine, and we're starting to see U.S. troop deployments there in NATO nations, and coming in close proximity, as well as sanctions, which means that no dollars will be spent to accumulate any palladium out of Russia for industrial use by any Western nations or NATO nations. And that very well could mean that the prices could really spike up for palladium, because the supply would be even more limited, as it is very limited now, because palladium as a metal is about between 15 to 20 times more rare than platinum, at least from what I've understand. The amount of above ground that there exists, it's a much more rare metal than even platinum, and platinum is about 15 to 20 times more rare than gold. So it's a it's an interesting dynamic here that we're looking at. Now, what does this mean for you if you are considering palladium? After what I just told you, that means that there's a lot of room for growth, almost 50% growth, if they think that palladium could drive well north of $4,000 per ounce. I would take that as a grain of salt, but I would not be surprised if we saw the price reach an all-time high. In other words, potentially north of $3,000 if we see conflict with Russia in the way that some people fear could happen. And because these types of things, geopolitical events, will directly drive the price of these very rare industrial metals, Palladium's main use is as a catalyst, and as a catalyst for gasoline engines, which means that it is heavily in demand in that area. With limited supply, it's about supply and demand. You limit the supply because geopolitics and conflict, well, there you go. You're going to see the price go up because more and more people need it, and it's got to be sourced from other places, and there's already very few places to get this metal right now. It is kind of a beautiful metal in its own way, sort of a little bit dull compared to silver. I'll show you an example between the two metals. You can see the difference, but it has its own type of beauty, I believe, that I think shines fairly brightly here in its own special way. But of course, this is a high relief eagle here, Palladium eagle. The first year of issue, 2017, limited to 15,000 of these. Beautiful indeed. But nonetheless, it's one of those things where we are going to see, I think, the potential for a lot of volatility in the palladium space and perhaps even in the platinum space for much of the same reason. Although I think platinum will not be quite as effective because of the rarity and the use of palladium for internal combustion engines. I cannot get this thing to stand up. I won't do it. I don't know why. I can't get it to do it. But nonetheless, I think it's something to consider here. If you are wanting to diversify your portfolio, it may not be a bad idea to consider it. But at the same time, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own due diligence whenever you put your money into anything. But it is an interesting concept. I never really would have thought this would have been as dramatically affected thus far in the price up. It's kind of caught us off guard because it's been a couple of days of this moving up here, an over 4.5 month high. I think this is like this increase has been occurring. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? It's gone up a crazy amount, and so it's something to keep your eye on. Especially if you own Palladium, you might be applauding yourself now for holding it, especially since we are literally within $500 of reaching its all-time high. And just today we saw it move $125, at least as I record this video. By the time you watch this video, the markets will be in another day of trading. So who knows what's going to happen then? It could actually even go down by the time you see this video. But nonetheless, it's an interesting thing to watch. There's a lot of tension. A lot of people are bracing for an invasion, and that could certainly occur. And it could happen within weeks. We'll find out. Either way, it's a metal to watch at the very least, and keep your eye open. But keep in mind, what is volatile about the metal is something that if you do make a purchase in a metal like this, which I consider a fringe precious metal, a risky venture with these volatile assets, that means it could go one way or the other, especially when you take into account rhodium. Rhodium, I bought right at the right time, and in theory, if I was thinking of it in terms of an investment, I should have sold when it got almost $30,000. It is now almost dropped into half of that right now, but I'm still way ahead. If I needed to sell that metal, but nonetheless, it's about timing, and it's about what you're comfortable holding or selling or buying, and you have to do your research and come to grips of that, not only mentally but emotionally. Whenever you make a purchase, you got to have the guts in order to make buys of some of these precious metals like platinum, palladium, all the PGMs, the platinum group metals are riskier, I think, than gold is especially, and even silver. And silver itself has proven itself to be somewhat risky in the past couple of years here. It's been pretty volatile in its movement as well. But nonetheless, I think there's a little bit more of an understanding with the supply issue and what's going to drive the price of silver. We have a little bit more understanding of that than I think we do the platinum markets, as far as how it's going to be traded and on a day-to-day basis, and what's going to affect the price. And that's key here, folks. What is going to affect the price of palladium? And right now, it's pretty simple. It is the tension in Russia. So there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. We'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.